been making roast chicken for Jeffrey almost every Friday night for 42 years. And between you and me, I'm a little sick of it. I can't think that he's not a little sick of it too, but you know, he's kind of too nice to say anything about it. So I thought, when he comes home, we're gonna have a steak throwdown. I know he's not expecting that. And I'm also gonna make herb ricotta bruschettas. But first, I'm gonna make ricotta. Who knew you could make ricotta? So I need a quart of whole milk, that's 4 cups, and 2 cups of cream. And the next thing I need is some salt, 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm just gonna bring that to a full boil. It's really important that it's a full boil. Give it a stir. And then I'm gonna show you what, it's like a science experiment. It's amazing. There are actually so many things you can do with homemade ricotta. Of course, you can put it in lasagna. You can make a nice dessert with a little sugar and cinnamon on it. It's sort of a classic Italian nursery dessert. But I'm gonna make ricotta bruschettas. And what I'm gonna do is mix it with fresh herbs. It's so delicious. And then put some toast on the grill, rub it with garlic, and put them together with a little salad. So the milk and cream and salt have just come to a boil. Just turn it off. And now comes the science experiment part. Put in 3 tablespoons of white wine vinegar, or any kind of vinegar, but I'm just using a good white wine vinegar. And what's gonna happen is, it's gonna separate into the curds and the whey. You've heard about it, curds and whey, but you've never actually seen it. The whole thing just disintegrates. So give it a stir. And in the meantime, I'm gonna set up some cheesecloths so I can separate them. So I take a big bowl and a strainer right on top. Just make sure the strainer's sitting above the bottom of the bowl so that it can drain. 2 sheets of cheesecloth. And let's see how this is doing. Yep, it's separating. It looks like a curdled mess, but what it really is ricotta. So after 60 seconds, just pour it right through the cheesecloth, and you'll see the curds will stay in the cheesecloth, and the whey, the milky part, will go to the bottom of the bowl. And then I'm just gonna let it sit at room temperature for about 25 to 30 minutes, depending on how thick I want the ricotta. And every once in a while, I'm just gonna drain the liquid on the bottom so it can keep draining. I mean, who knew you could make ricotta? And that was really easy. So I'm chopping up herbs for the herb ricotta bruschetta. First, I need 3 tablespoons of scallions, 2 tablespoons of chives. I have lots of them in my garden, so I'm always trying to use them up. I actually made this with some friends of mine. It was her birthday, and I said, what would you like for your birthday? And she said, what I'd really like is a cooking lesson with you. So I showed her how to make these, and it was just amazing. They went home afterwards and made it again themselves. They were just amazed how the ricotta happened and how easy it was and how delicious. And then 1 tablespoon of chopped dill. I mean, obviously the herbs are whatever combination you like. But this is sort of a balance of all the herbs. I just think the balance of the flavors really works well. 3 scallions, 2 tablespoons of chives, and 1 tablespoon of dill. And now I think the ricotta is actually ready. It really drains a lot. I poured the liquid out a few times, and it's like cheese. It's amazing. So I'm just gonna dump this right into the bowl with the herbs. Ricotta is really just an all-purpose thing. However you flavor it is how it tastes. I'm gonna stir it all together. And the good news about this is the more it sits, the more flavor it has. So you can let it sit at room temperature for a little bit, but if you're gonna leave it for a long time, put it in the fridge. Okay, lots of salt and pepper. Make sure it's got great flavor. 1 teaspoon of salt. I have to say I love measuring seasonings because then you know you've got it right. And then taste it, make sure it is right. 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. Just stir it in. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grill some bread with Jeffrey. We're gonna rub it with garlic and then top it with this herb ricotta. It's gonna be absolutely delicious. I love the taste of it, and I particularly love when it's warm. Really taste the fresh herbs and the creaminess of the ricotta. I like this.
So what else you got there?
Well, I thought I'd make herb ricotta bruschettas.
Ooh.
So I'm just gonna rub this with olive oil.
Okay.
And then salt and pepper. How's that?
Yeah, I could eat that actually without it being grilled.
That's beside the point.
Okay.
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 Got 4 pieces.
Oh,
So
I know what I can do.
It's gonna grill for about 1 minute.
Can I?
Brush it with olive oil?
Yeah.
Sure.
Hold that. There you go.
Uh-oh, I don't know if you want a drunk griller.
How's that?
Brilliant.
How hard is this? I think I'm barbecuing myself here, if you want to know.
Okay, a little
Okay,
salt,
yeah.
a little pepper. How's that?
Whoa.
So you want to see how they're doing?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like 1 minute on each side. Whoa, perfect.
Whoa,
How's that?
Looks great.
Okay. Just want them
Wow.
nice and toasted.
So why do we need the barbecue? Is there something else?
Yeah, we're gonna make dinner on it.
What is the main course?
It's not chicken, I can tell you that. So this is what we're gonna do.
Okay.
I decided we were gonna make steak. Go off the reservation,
You mean off the grid?
off the grid.
Off the grid.
But I couldn't decide whether we should make steak in the oven or on the grill. So I thought we're gonna have a steak throwdown. You'll do one on the grill, I'll do one in the oven, and we'll see whose comes out best.
Wait a minute, let me see if I understand this. We're gonna have a contest?
Yeah, we're gonna have a contest.
And you got me on the barbecue?
Yeah.
Okay, my competitive juices are going.
Okay.
I am rising to this occasion.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Okay, so
Perfect.
we've got toast
Yeah,
for the bruschetta, and then we're gonna rub it with garlic. How's that?
great.
Rub it with a cut clove of garlic, so you get the flavor of the garlic,
Yeah.
but you don't actually have the garlic. Woo! You can really smell the garlic.
Yeah.
The herb ricotta. So you want to taste one of these? How's that?
Well, wait, you're gonna get me drunk. You're gonna
You're gonna be full.
fill me up, and then you're gonna ask me to barbecue.
Yeah, got the right idea.
Whoop.
Okay, babe, you up for this challenge?
Am I up for this challenge? I'm up for this challenge.
Throwing a cocktail party does seem daunting, but this is my secret. I only make 2 appetizers and I assemble the rest. And then I don't have to spend a week getting ready for it. So I've made 1 other appetizer, and now I'm making Parmesan thyme crackers. They sound complicated because who makes crackers? But they're so easy and delicious. I'm gonna start with a 1/4 pound of butter. It has to be room temperature, it's really important. I'm just gonna put it on low speed just to mix it up. And then next thing is Parmesan. So a chunk of Parmesan, I need 4 ounces, about 1 cup of grated Parmesan. This is no stress Parmesan. Noisy, but no stress. You want to be sure it's very finely ground so it doesn't, you don't have big pieces of Parmesan in the crackers. So that's perfect, finely ground. So I need 4 ounces of Parmesan cheese. Just be sure you buy a bigger piece because you end up with the rind. And it's about 1 cup, so I'm just gonna measure it. Whoa. Nobody ever said I was a neat cook. And just put it in with the butter and let that mix up. And in the meantime, I'm gonna get the thyme ready. So I need 1 teaspoon of thyme leaves. Peel them right off the stems. This is the time for fresh herbs. It really makes all the difference in the world. Dry herbs just don't have the same kind of flavor or sort of freshness about them. Okay, so just give this a big rough chop. Okay, that should be about a teaspoon. Just right into the mix. Salt and pepper, always important. So 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I use kosher salt. You can smell the Parmesan, it's great. 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. And then flour. I need 1 1/4 cups of flour. Just add it slowly. This is why it's really important for the butter to be room temperature. If it's too cold, it'll never mix in properly. So this is mixing up. It's a little crumbly. And actually, if the water content of the butter is low, I add a little bit of extra water, and then it'll all come together nicely. That's actually always true about shortbread, I find, whether it's sweet or savory. If the butter is a little bit dry, it won't actually pull together, and you want to make a nice dough. So that's just perfect. Okay. I love this kind of hors d'oeuvre because I can make the roll in advance, leave it in the refrigerator, and then just slice it and bake for cocktails. Flour board. So I want to make a 9-inch roll. Pull the dough together and just roll it out until it's 9 inches long, and then it'll be exactly the right diameter. Okay, so that should be perfect. I'm just going to wrap them up in plastic wrap. I'm gonna refrigerate it until it's really firm, and then, just before serving them, I'm gonna bake them, and they're gonna be so good. Into the fridge until they're nice and chilled, so they're really firm. Then slice them 3/8 inch thick, put Put them on a sheet pan, parchment paper, into the oven, 350 degrees for 22 minutes exactly. Parmesan and thyme crackers. I just let them cool a little on the tray. Pretty platter, and I'm done. I'm gonna make tomato and goat cheese tarts. So I've sauteed some onions and garlic, a little oil, so the onions really caramelize. So I've got 1 sheet of puff pastry. I'm just gonna unfold it onto the board. Flour the board a little bit, flour the pastry, and then just roll it out to 11 by 11 inches square. It was a miracle when I discovered puff pastry, because it always comes out right. Okay, instead of fancy equipment for cutting out tart shells, I use a saucer. It's 6 inches in diameter. Cut this with a knife. I want to make sure these still stay cold. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little paring knife and just cut a 1/2 inch border around each of the pastries. And what that's going to do is allow the edge to puff up a little bit so it's a little more like a tart. And then I'm going to put the filling inside that edge. Don't go all the way through. You don't want to separate it. Okay, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dock it, which means that I'm going to take a fork and make little holes just inside the circle. It keeps the whole thing from sort of puffing up, and I want it to stay flat like a tart. And these little holes can go all the way through. When it bakes, they'll close up. Okay, now it's time to see how the onions are doing. Oh, they're smelling fantastic. I've got 2 cups of onions and some garlic. Just saute them together in a little oil. So they're just starting to caramelize. Okay, now I'm going to season it. I need some salt and pepper. Splash of white wine, give it a little more flavor. That's not good. And I'm going to add some fresh thyme. I just love that combination of onions and thyme. I use Reggiano Parmesan. It's the best Italian Parmesan, and it's really worth using. It has so much flavor. So I'm going to grate 2 tablespoons of Parmesan. Put 1 tablespoon at the bottom of each tart, and then put more on top. That should be it. So right inside the circle, so it doesn't prevent the edges from puffing up. Okay, next the onions. So a little bit of onion on each tart. I'm just going to crumble a few tablespoons of goat cheese on top of the onions. Just roughly. It's all going to melt together. It's about 1 ounce for each tart. Okay, that's the goat cheese. Next, a slice of tomato. So 1 big thick slice, about the size of the circle, about 1/2 inch thick, right in the middle. Look how fabulous that looks. To make sure that the tomato cooks and browns nicely, I'm just going to do a little brush of olive oil on top of it. Just brush the top of the tomato. Just make sure that it cooks beautifully, since it's the major thing in the tart. Okay, the next thing is some fresh basil leaves. And now, even more Parmesan. I'm going to do vegetable peeler and big shavings of Parmesan right on the top. And what this is going to do, it's going to look like Parmesan on the top. And it'll bake right into it. It's just wonderful. I've got a 1/4 cup of olive oil, a cup of onion that I've let saute for about 5 minutes, just until it gets really tender. You don't want it to turn brown. I'm going to add 3 scallions. Just let them cook for another few minutes. I've got frozen spinach that I've defrosted. You need a huge pot of fresh spinach to make this amount of spinach for the dish. Okay, right into the bowl. I used 2 10-ounce packages of frozen spinach defrosted. Okay, let's see how the onions and scallions are doing. Just want them tender and not too browned. This is one of those really versatile dishes. You can put anything you like in or take anything out. If you don't like feta, you can just do it with spinach, but it's sort of a classic Greek combination. Just give that a little stir. Okay, next is 4 eggs. Just beat them lightly. This is what's going to bind it all together. 3 tablespoons of dry breadcrumbs. In this case, I actually use the store-bought dry breadcrumbs. You want them to absorb a little of the moisture from the spinach so the Spanakopitas don't get watery. 3 tablespoons of freshly grated Parmesan. I actually grind it in a food processor. It gives it just the right texture. 1 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. 2 teaspoons of salt. I want to make sure it's really well seasoned. 1 teaspoon of pepper. I have 3 tablespoons of pine nuts. I sauteed them dry in a pan, just on very low heat, about 5 minutes, until they're really nutty and golden brown. So it's about 2 cups of feta, about 12 ounces. And just give it a big toss. So Spanakopitas are really a savory strudel. I use strudel dough, which is phyllo, and wrap it around the filling. So this is phyllo dough. Good news is you don't have to make it. It comes in the freezer. And I just defrost it overnight in the refrigerator. It's very flaky. So I've got 1 piece of phyllo dough. And just brush it with butter. I melted a 1/4 pound of butter for all of this. Doesn't have to be perfect, just lightly. And if it tears a little bit, don't worry about it. And then I'm going to put dry breadcrumbs, sprinkle it with dry breadcrumbs, just enough, not really thickly, but just enough so the next piece of phyllo dough slides right on. If you don't do the breadcrumbs, what happens is it'll just stick and you'll never get it to slide on. And again, butter gets easier as it gets thicker. Sprinkle it with breadcrumbs. Another layer of phyllo dough. I'm going to do 4 layers. Brush it with butter. The last one you actually don't have to have breadcrumbs on because you're not putting another layer of phyllo dough on top. So now I'm going to turn it this way, lengthwise, and cut it right down the middle in half. If I were making appetizers, I'd cut it smaller than this. They end up triangles, and I'll show you how it works. So exactly 1/3 of a cup of filling. That's the perfect amount. Just on one corner, on the bottom. And just fold it right over in a triangle. And then fold it straight, and by the time you're done, you'll see it's completely enclosed. And then I'm just going to put it right on the sheet pan.
My friend Dwyer and I are giving a housewarming party for our friends, the Greenwalds, who just moved into this fabulous house. Well, it's a surprise. They know we're having a party, but what they don't know is what we're having for dinner, and we're going Greek. First, I'm doing Spanakopitas, and Dwyer's doing a nice Greek fruit dessert. I'm brushing them with butter so they get nice and browned and absolutely delicious. And then, you don't always have to do this, but I like to. So I'm going to sprinkle it with a little coarse salt. I just think it looks like it has more flavor, and actually, it does have more flavor. Into the oven, 375 degrees for 30 minutes. These are going to be big, puffed, delicious Spanakopita triangles.
So I'm going to start with 3 pounds of salmon, and it's a fillet. I'm going to cut it in half. It's beautiful salmon. All the bones have been taken out, but it's still on the skin. So I'm going to take half of it and put it in a big dish. Just like that. Now I'm going to make a salt and spice and sugar cure to put on top. So first I need 2 tablespoons of whole peppercorns, 1 tablespoon of whole fennel seeds. Just think how good that is. Lots of flavor. And just grind it up like this. Okay, that's the spice mixture. Now I need half a cup of salt. I know it's a lot of salt, but we're curing it. And half a cup of sugar. So that's the salt and spice mixture. So the next thing I'm going to do is I have lots of fresh dill, and it's really important for this. I'm going to take a big bunch of fresh dill and just put it right on top of the salmon. And that flavor, that kind of like dill flavor, it's so unique, so Scandinavian, is going to get into the salmon. Okay, next is the spice mixture. Just all of it right on top. I know it seems like a lot of salt and a lot of sugar, but that's how you cure salmon. It sounds like the cure for the common cold, but it's salmon. Okay, and then some Pernod, which is very anise flavor, 2 tablespoons. And that's going to help dissolve the salt and the sugar and get right into the salmon. So next, I'm going to take the other half of the salmon and put it right on top. Look how great that looks. I love it. And then I'm going to take a dish. I want to weight it down. I'm going to take a dish that can sit right on top. A little precarious, but it sits right on top. And then I'm going to weight it. Go to the pantry and get 2 cans, preferably crushed tomatoes. No, it doesn't matter what kind of cans, any kind of cans. And just weight that on top. And that's going to sit in the fridge for 2 days. And every 12 hours, I'm going to flip the whole salmon thing over. And then it'll marinate the other side and then flip it back again. Okay, let's see if I can get it into the fridge without dropping it. Happily, I have one that I did 2 days ago. So I'll show you how it looks. Take one off, put it right on the board. The salt and the sugar and the spices and fennel all got into the salmon. I'm just gonna take the dill off. And then I'm gonna take any pieces of pepper and fennel left over off. When I first learned, the woman who taught me actually said, slice on one side and then the other side until you get really comfortable, which is really good advice. And this is actually called a smoked salmon knife. So if you really want to treat yourself, it's not a bad idea because you really can't do this with a chef's knife. It would be impossible. Like trying to do surgery with a screwdriver. You just always need the right utensils for the right job. So you really want to do it not just paper thin, but also evenly. And it takes some practice, but you can do it. See how thin this is? It's really paper thin. Pumpernickel bread is really dark and sort of just a delicious counterpoint to the salmon. I just put Dijon mustard into a bowl along with honey mustard, whole grain mustard, and ground mustard. Next, I added some sugar, white wine vinegar, whisked everything together, then slowly poured in olive oil and grapeseed oil, whisking constantly until the sauce was emulsified. Finally, I mixed in minced fresh dill and some salt. Easy, right? A little bit of dill. Seared kielbasa with a mustard dip. Kielbasa is a smoked Polish sausage, and I like the ones that have lots of spices. If you can find one. It's fully cooked. I'm slicing it 1/2 inch thick diagonally, and I'm just gonna sear it in a pan. I mean, it's really that easy. Sometimes they come not cooked, but you want them fully cooked. And I'm just gonna sear it so it's a little bit crispy and heated all the way through. How good does that look? And the best part of this dish is I just serve it right in the pan. Okay, one layer at a time. So I'm just sauteing this in a little olive oil, and I just want one layer so it gets really seared. Okay, I'm gonna cook this on one side, a few minutes until it's nicely brown, then flip it over and cook it on the other side. In the meantime, I'm gonna make a really good mustard dip for it. So, this is my mustard dip. So I have a cup of mayonnaise. Okay, 2 tablespoons of Dijon mustard. It's got lots of flavor. A teaspoon of whole grain mustard. I like using whole grain mustard because then it looks like it's mustard. A teaspoon of horseradish, make it nice and spicy. And lots of salt and pepper. And just give it a stir. I mean, that's pretty easy, right? I mean, this is a classic comfort combination, kielbasa and mustard dip. Just think they go together. The first time I served it right out of the pan, I thought, I wonder if people are gonna like it. It was gone. I mean, people went crazy. Okay, now I'm gonna turn the kielbasa so it's nice and browned on both sides. It smells so good. I just served this with toothpicks. Everybody just helps themselves. I just love things that are really casual and country, comforting, and easy. Even better when it's all so easy. Oh, these are perfectly browned. And see how fast it is? It's really fast. Okay, so while these cook on the other side, I'm just gonna get everything else ready. So I've got a little ramekin for the mustard sauce. Skewers, I have a little ramekin, and I'm just gonna serve it right in the saute pan. It's nice and crispy and browned on the other side. It's just perfectly cooked. So I always put out toothpicks or skewers in case people want to use them, but it's just you and me, right? So I can use my fingers. This is so fabulous. You know what I love about this? It's just one of those really simple pleasures. Comfort food, it's delicious. Your friends are gonna go crazy too. And it's so easy to make. Great hors d'oeuvre. Cacio and Pepe means cheese and pepper. And it starts with a pâte à choux dough. I'm gonna show you how to make it. It's really easy. 1 cup of milk, and heat it up with 1/4 pound of butter. And just bring that to a simmer. This is actually the same dough that makes éclairs, makes profiteroles, and all kinds of cheese puffs. So just heat this until the butter melts, and then bring it to a simmer. You don't want the milk to boil. It's simmering now. You can just see the bubbles around the edge. So I need salt and pepper, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of pepper, and now 1 cup of flour. Okay, level it off. Okay, and then I'm just gonna dump it in. Stir it really vigorously for 2 minutes on low heat, and you'll see it all come together. Okay, that's about 2 minutes. When you see a light coating of flour on the bottom of the pan, you know the dough is ready. Okay, now off the heat, and now I'm gonna dump it into a food processor. Just pour the whole thing in. Watch how cool this is. I'm gonna add 4 eggs and lots of cheese. 1/2 cup of pecorino and 1/2 cup of Parmesan. They have slightly different flavors and I like them together. Put the lid on and just process it just until it all comes together. It's gonna be really thick. And that's the dough. I mean, that's pretty easy. So now I just have to fill a pastry bag. I've got a really big one. It's 18 inches, and I've put a plain round tip in it. The tip is about 5/8 inches across. Okay. Just squeeze the dough down to the bottom. Okay, I'm gonna show you how I do it. Just put your pastry bag down like this and have them come out, just like that. You can do about 20 on each sheet pan. So now, I don't want pointy little cheese puffs, I want rounded ones. So I'm just gonna take a wet finger and just press down the top of each one. Okay, now I'm gonna brush them with a little bit of egg wash. Okay, a few more things. I'm gonna put a sprinkling of pecorino on the top of each one. Just make sure it has great cheese flavor. And then, because you want them to be really spicy, sprinkle them with salt and pepper. Okay, ready to go into the oven. 425 degrees for 15 to 20 minutes until they're puffed and golden brown on the outside and still soft inside. You're not gonna believe what they look like when they come out. How fabulous do those look? They smell so cheesy and peppery. Okay, now I'm just gonna put them on a platter. Little fleur de sel to finish. Everything tastes better with more salt. And see, Cacio Pepe cheese puffs, they're not so daunting after all. Now I just need a good glass of Italian wine to go with it. Roast tomatoes with pesto and Parmesan is happily one of those dishes you can make all year round. There's something about roasting tomatoes that really brings out the flavor. I'm gonna show you how to do it. So I'm starting with these small round tomatoes that I have in the garden, and I'm just slicing them 1/2 inch thick. I'm just gonna put them on a sheet pan. You don't wanna put paper underneath it. You just wanna do it directly on the sheet pan because you want them to brown nicely. The one thing you wanna make sure is that this dish that it goes with is kind of quiet because these are really flavorful. So just line them up on a sheet pan. I can believe how easy this is. Drizzle of olive oil always gives them lots of flavor. That looks good already. And then I'm gonna put oregano on it. I usually use dried oregano. I don't love fresh oregano. I think it's really too strong. And what I do is I put it between my hands and just rub it, and it really brings out whatever oils are in the dried herbs, and just sprinkle it right on top. So this has basil and oregano on it because of the pesto. Lots of salt and pepper. Pepper. And this is gonna go into the oven, 425 degrees for about 10 minutes so they just start roasting. And then when they come out after 10 minutes, I'm just gonna slather them with pesto and Parmesan. I'm gonna make the pesto next. So I've got a 1/4 cup of walnuts, 1/4 cup of pinoles, and lots of garlic. So 3 tablespoons of garlic. That's about 9 cloves. Okay, just gonna give it a quick whir. Next, lots of basil. So I need 5 cups of fresh basil leaves. Okay, now I need a teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of pepper, and just give it a blitz. Then I'm gonna put in lots of olive oil. Already smelling like pesto. Okay, next is 1½ cups of olive oil. This is what makes it into a sauce, which is really what pesto is. I use good California olive oil. I think it's got a nice fruity flavor. Sometimes olive oil can be kind of turpentine-y or a little bitter. I don't like that flavor in olive oil. So just pour it in slowly, the way you would make mayonnaise, so it gets absorbed into the sauce. And the last thing is lots of Parmesan cheese. So I'm gonna put in about a cup of Parmesan cheese. It's actually ground. I think it's a better way to measure it, grinding it rather than grating it. Just give it a last whir. And it's done, and I think the tomatoes are ready too. Take each one, just put a little dab of pesto on each tomato. Doesn't that look fantastic? And then I'm gonna put Parmesan cheese on top. About a ½ cup of Parmesan cheese, just sprinkle on top. It's gonna get all bubbly and delicious. It's gonna be fantastic. Okay, into the oven, keeping it at 425 for another 7 to 10 minutes, and they're gonna be kind of browned and bubbly and so delicious. Okay, a little bit of salt, give it lots of flavor. Now that's tomatoes with pesto and Parmesan. How good does that look? It's very Italian, very delicious. Great as a side dish. It's great served warm, room temperature. I can't wait to taste it. It's so good. I always love to serve something delicious with cocktails. Something substantial, but not so heavy that it makes you feel like you've eaten dinner already. So I thought for the Libermans, I'd make crab strudels. So, first thing I need is some chopped scallions. This has crab meat, scallions, a little curry powder, just delicious. I actually chop up the whole scallion. Some people think you should only eat the light, green, and white parts, but I'm not quite sure why. They all have flavor. So I need 3 scallions, a little bit of butter in a pan to cook them. Just let that melt. Put the chopped scallions in. 2 cloves of garlic. Just mince them right up. I like to put the garlic in after the scallions have cooked so that the garlic doesn't burn. In goes the garlic. That's 2 cloves chopped. Okay, a teaspoon of curry powder. You want good curry powder, but not so spicy that it overwhelms the crab meat. Okay, while that cooks, I'm gonna get the crab meat ready. So I have 1 pound of lump crab meat. Got it at the seafood shop. Just want to sort of pick through it and make sure there are no shells. Every once in a while you run into a shell. Nobody wants to bite into shell. So try not to break it up too much, but just feel around. Perfect. So now I need chopped parsley. About 2 teaspoons should do it. Strudels are really flexible. You can pretty much put whatever you think is appropriate in them. Any leftovers, so you have a chicken and curry left over, just wrap it in a little strudel, bake it, and you've got a nice appetizer. Okay, parsley, a little bit of lime juice. Just put it right in. Again, these are flavors that really enhance the crab meat. They just make it taste wonderful without overwhelming the delicate flavor. Okay, that's good. Let's see how the scallions and garlic are doing. They smell so good. And that's just gonna go right in. Scallions, garlic, and curry. Toss it all together. This is the filling. I'm gonna wrap it in phyllo dough, brush it with lots of butter, and then bake it off with the Libermans. Okay, need a little bit of melted butter. And now for the phyllo dough. Phyllo dough's classic Greek pastry. It's very, very, very thin. You don't want to try and make it yourself. It comes in the freezer section of the grocery store, and you defrost it in the refrigerator overnight. So I'm going to unroll this package. The thing about it is you want to keep it as moist as you possibly can. So put it right here on the stone. I'm going to do 4 layers for each strudel. So you take 1 piece of phyllo dough, put it on the board, brush it with butter, like that. And I actually use breadcrumbs so that the layers don't stick together when you put them together. So second layer, see how thin they are? They're amazing. More butter. More breadcrumbs. These are great because you can make them in advance. In fact, you can make a lot of them and just freeze them. So they're wonderful for hors d'oeuvres. And the 4th layer. And then just brush this. Okay, now I'm going to turn it on its edge. Turn it like this. Take the crab meat filling, run it a nice roll down the side. So it'll roll up about 1 inch. Then take the end, roll it right around the crab meat. And roll it as tightly as you can. Just like that, just keep rolling. And each of these layers is going to make it really nice and flaky when you slice it and bake it. Okay, so that's one. I'm going to brush the top with butter so it gets nice and brown when I bake it. And then I'm going to bake it at Barbara's house. Okay, the next one. I'm just slicing these into like 1.5 inch slices on a diagonal. I'm going to bake them in a roll. And then after they come out of the oven, I'm just going to slice them all the way through. And when I get to Barbara's, I'm going to bake them 400 degrees for 15 to 20 minutes, and they're going to be crisp on the outside and delicious on the inside. Crab strudels are ready to go into the oven at Barbara's, 400 degrees for 15 to 20 minutes, and they're going to be so good. Crab strudels, anyone?
I love having a party where you do the work.
What's in this besides crab?
Strudel. So I'm starting with a pint of heirloom cherry tomatoes, and I'm cutting them in half, and I just cut them through the stem. The heirloom tomatoes, because the seeds have been handed down from generation to generation, and they have incredible colors and flavors. You can actually grow these yourself. Just get heirloom tomato seeds. You can grow them in the ground or in pots. So easy. So that's the tomatoes. So next is the burrata. And what burrata is, it's mozzarella with a very soft center. I'll show you when I cut it. And this is enough for 2. It always comes in water to stay moist. And I'm going to cut it in half, and you'll see the center is really creamy. And what I do is put the creamy side down on the plate, just like that. You're not going to believe how easy this dish is to make. And then I'm going to put the tomatoes right around. It'll look gorgeous. It's going to be delicious. It's a really nice lunch or a first course before dinner. Look how pretty this looks. Okay, I'm going to drizzle it with olive oil. Don't even need to make a vinaigrette. Just do it right on the plate. Sprinkle it with sea salt. I use sea salt like a finishing salt. Fleur de sel, a little pepper. And some basil, because of course you have to have basil with tomatoes and mozzarella. I mean, sometimes you can even just take small basil leaves and put them right on, or tear them. But I think it looks pretty also to chiffonade them. So that's what I'm gonna do. This is a real summer dish. You don't want to turn on the stove. You've got something on the grill. The perfect first course. A little basil around. And then the last ingredient's really important. It's really good syrupy balsamic vinegar. And I'm just going to drizzle it right over the top. It's sweet, it's acidic, it's everything you could possibly want in a tomato mozzarella and basil salad. And I have one more thing, some garlic toast I made. Crunch is really nice with it. So I'm going to show you how I made them. The garlic toasts are so easy. I put 6 large slices of a baguette on a sheet pan, brushed them with olive oil, sprinkled them with salt and pepper, and baked them at 400 degrees for 15 minutes. When they were browned and crisp, I took them out, used the cut side of a half of a clove of garlic, and rubbed it on each slice, and put them all on a platter.
So what I'm doing here actually is I'm peeling the shrimp. I like to leave the tails on because when they're cooked, it's kind of a nice handle. And then I'm deveining it, run my knife right down the back. Just want to take that black vein out of the back of the shrimp and then just pull it out if it's in there. Sometimes there isn't any. These are 2 pounds of 12 to 15 count, which means there are 12 to 15 shrimp in a pound. Okay, so that's the shrimp, and now I'm going to show you how to roast them. Spread them out on a sheet pan and just olive oil, just a couple of tablespoons, salt and pepper. Toss them together. And the important thing is you don't want to pile them up. You want basically in one layer. So I'm just going to spread them out. Okay, 400 degrees, 8 to 10 minutes. These are going to be so delicious. Now for the sauce. I'm a believer in classic sauces. Cocktail sauce is cocktail sauce. I just like to do it with the volume turned up. So some of the classic ingredients with a little more flavor. So I need half a cup of chili sauce. Actually, I like to combine chili sauce and ketchup. One's a little spicy, one's a little sweeter. Half a cup of ketchup. That should be about right. 3 tablespoons of horseradish. Give it lots of spice, lots of heat. 1, 2. Splash of Worcestershire sauce. Give it a little depth of flavor. Splash of Tabasco. Give it more heat, but a different kind of heat. And because I like the fresh flavor, a little bit of lemon to give it a nice sort of fresh, citrusy flavor. Always goes with shrimp. A couple of teaspoons. Now, how easy is that? And that's the sauce. Okay, I'm gonna set it up. Bowl for the sauce in the middle. And the shrimp should be ready. Oh, they look fantastic. Now, how fast is that? Okay, they're gonna be really hot, but if I work fast, I can do it. The shrimp are actually best if they're served warm or room temperature. These look really great. Well, I know how people went for the shrimp cocktail when I was catering, and we just used the boiled shrimp and perfectly good cocktail sauce, but not great cocktail sauce like this. People are gonna go crazy. Fantastic. Shrimp cocktail, really fast and so delicious. That looks pretty good.
I love going to the market and just seeing what's fresh, what's in season, and then just coming home and taking everything and making something delicious with it. So today I'm gonna make tomato crostini with whipped feta. What it is crostini toast, and then I'm gonna make a creamy feta spread, and on top I'm gonna put those delicious cherry tomatoes. It's a great combination. So I'm starting out with 6 ounces of feta, 2 ounces of cream cheese. I wanna be sure it's really room temperature so it mixes in well. Process these two together just for a minute, just until they're combined. Okay, now some good stuff. 1/3 of a cup of olive oil. That should be perfect. 2 tablespoons of freshly squeezed lemon juice. Just gonna do it right in. A little strainer always helps to take the seeds out. 2 tablespoons is about 1 lemon, more or less. There's no substitute for fresh lemon. Okay, that should be about 2 tablespoons. Fantastic. And now just some salt and pepper. 1/2 teaspoon of salt. 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Just give it a whir. So there are 3 parts of this recipe. There's the creamy feta spread, there's the toast that it's gonna go on, and the tomatoes. I've got the bread in the oven. So what I did for the crostini is I took a baguette, I sliced it diagonally about 1/2 inch thick, and then brushed it with olive oil and baked them at 425 for about 6 to 8 minutes, just until they're crisp. Okay, that's the crostini, next the tomato topping. Okay, in a small bowl, put together 2 tablespoons of minced shallots, 2 teaspoons of minced garlic, and 2 tablespoons of good red wine vinegar. And if you have the time, just let that sit for about 5 minutes so the vinegar really gets into the shallots. When the time's up, add 1/3 of a cup of good olive oil, a teaspoon of salt, and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. Next, the star ingredient of the recipe, 2 pounds of ripe cherry tomatoes. I got them at the market. Just stir it all together, set it aside for like 10 minutes, just for the flavors to develop. Then one last ingredient, 3 tablespoons of julienne fresh basil leaves. And that's the topping. So I've got all the elements all together, and I'm just assembling them. So there's a little toast, and the whipped feta, and the tomatoes right on top, with fresh basil. It's gonna be delicious. And a few pine nuts. Right on the tray. Those look good enough to eat. A little basil on top. Basil smells so good. I think he's gonna love what we got at the farmer's market. Hi, sweetie. I don't want
what's
you
this?
claiming I'm starving you to death while you're working.
Oh, I'm wasting away here.
So it's a crostini and whipped feta and tomatoes that we got at the farmer's market.
Oh, that looks unbelievable.
I hope you love it. Is that good?
This is fantastic.
I'm going to show you how to prepare the cauliflower for the cauliflower toasts. So this is small cauliflower. It's about 2 pounds. I'm going to take off all the greens. Don't want to eat those. And just pull the rest off. Okay. So what most people do is they cut it right through the top. You end up with like a flat plane, which isn't very pretty. What I do is turn it over and cut out the core and then pull the florets apart. 4 tablespoons of olive oil. This really needs a lot of olive oil. You'll see it just gets absorbed by the cauliflower. A little bit of red pepper flakes, like 1/4 teaspoon. You don't want to burn people. You just want a little underlying heat. Teaspoon of salt. Sprinkle it on. Just toss it together. To roast the cauliflower, I'll put it in a 400-degree oven, tossing it from time to time. And after 30 minutes, when the florets are tender and randomly browned, I'll take it out and let it cool. So the cauliflower's cooled, and now I'm gonna put it in a big bowl and add some really delicious things. First, I'm gonna add 12 ounces of room temperature mascarpone, which is really like cream cheese. It's Italian cream cheese, but it's a little richer. 6 ounces of Gruyere. It's grated in long shreds. Just add the whole thing together. I've got 4 ounces of prosciutto, and what I'm gonna do is julienne it. I've stacked them all up. Just gonna put that right in. Just try and break it up so you don't get big pieces of prosciutto, just little shreds. And then salt and pepper, 1 teaspoon of salt. Now the thing about salting is you want to salt all the way through, a little bit at a time, and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. And that way things don't taste salty, they taste perfectly seasoned. And then I'm gonna put a little nutmeg in, which is sort of classic when you make gratins, like with cheese. Just 1/4 teaspoon, gives it a little extra hit of flavor. Okay, I'm gonna toss it all together. This is why the mascarpone has to be room temperature, otherwise it won't mix in. I wanna make sure it's really well mixed. Next is the toast. So I took a big boule, like one of those big round breads, country bread, and it's got a firm texture. If you use like a white bread, it's just gonna be too soft and it won't hold the cauliflower. And I'm just gonna pile the cauliflower right on top of it. Okay, I wanna get lots of it on. Maybe a little sprinkle of paprika on it. Just give it a little color, a little heat. Okay, that's 1. So that's all 6 cauliflower toasts. I'll put them under the broiler for about 3 minutes. Watch them really carefully so they don't burn. I can smell cauliflower and cheese. Oh, these look so good. They're like crispy on the top and all the melted cheese. Fantastic. So I'm gonna put them on a platter. I always do like a square platter if I have something with rounded edges. Just somehow looks better. So I'm gonna put a few more things on top. A little fresh chive. I love to do this on the platter so the garnish kind of falls on the platter. You know what everything is. Parmesan cheese, a little spiciness. I mean, that really does make it look better. A little sea salt. Wow, this looks amazing. I mean, that's a way to take a very lowly vegetable like a cauliflower and make it into something really luxurious and delicious. I think I may have to steal a little piece of cauliflower. It's sweet, it's creamy, the cheese is amazing. You really can taste the chive. That's a delicious appetizer. So the first thing I always do with a cheese platter is put down some green leaves. These are fig leaves from my garden, but if you don't have a fig tree in your garden, you can use hydrangea leaves, you can go to the florist and get galax leaves, whatever you have that's sort of big, green, and flat. Okay, the next thing I always do is I always put a big bunch of grapes right in the middle. It can be a couple of bunches of grapes, actually. The first time I did a cheese platter was like 40 years ago, and my friend Anna Pump was with me. And I don't know what it looked like, but it probably looked like a dog's breakfast. And she came over to me and she said, okay, now take everything off the platter. I was like, okay. And then she said, okay, now put the grapes in the middle, the cheese around the outside, and big blocks of crackers and apricots. And then she said, and stop. Those are 2 really good lessons, is to do it really simply and beautifully, and then stop. Okay, so we've got a big bunch of grapes in the middle, and then I'm gonna put the cheeses on the outside, as Anna taught me. So I have different kinds of cheeses. I like soft ripening cheeses like brie, like this is one. I have a blue cheese. This is English Stilton, which I adore. And you want the rinds in and the cheese facing out. And this is incredible. This is pecorino with truffles. So it's an Italian cheese. It's just so flavorful. And the last one is goat cheese. So now I've got all different shapes and flavors. I've got creamy things, I've got crumbly things, I've got hard, sharp things. And the goat cheese, which is called fleur verte, is a very creamy goat cheese with herbs on the outside. So just put that right there. So now I've got extra space on the platter to put other things. And I love things that like go with cheese. So fresh strawberries are great. So I'm just gonna put a big bunch of fresh strawberries on. And just kind of paint it, you know, just keep it really casual. So when I do a cheese platter, I always do it as a second course. So there's a main course, the cheese course, and dessert. And you wanna do it not when you're making filet beef for dinner and like chocolate mousse for dessert, because people will go home holding their bellies going, oh, I'm never eating again. You don't want that. So I always do it when I have something light like fish or a stew, like a fish stew. And then I serve something like granita for dessert, because this is a pretty rich course. So that's strawberries. Then I'm gonna do maybe some apricots in the middle. So big blocks of color. You don't want it to look like that original one that I did, which looked like a dog's breakfast. And then I always like other things that taste good with it. So a little fig jam is wonderful. Like the blue cheese and the fig jam is great together. So I'm just gonna, I mean, really, this is all store-bought. Just put a little bowl in with fresh fig jam, a little knife, and everybody can help themselves. Sometimes people serve cheese as a first course, like before dinner. I just think people fill up on cheese. You want it to be like a treat after dinner. I love this. I love fig jam and Stilton together. Okay, now crackers. So I have different shaped crackers and different colors of crackers. So I have light crackers like these sticks. They're really delicious, just like that. Just put them right on. And then I have dark crackers that are like little crisp things. So I'm just gonna put them around. I don't even need room, which is exactly when it looks the best, when it's all like full and sumptuous. If you're gonna make a cheese platter for a lot of people, don't get more kinds of cheese, just get bigger pieces. Or cheese platter for a smaller group, the same thing. Smaller pieces of cheese. Okay, I think I'm gonna do one more thing. I like a little height on this brie, so what I'm gonna do is take a little piece of it and just put it right on top. So now it's got a little more height, kind of matches the other ones. And I've got one more thing. I've got a fig ball. This is dried figs. Let's see how this is gonna go on. And I'm gonna open the fig ball, and it's dried and wrapped in fig leaves. And just open the whole thing so people can help themselves. Maybe I'll cut it in half. That's a good idea. And you'll see all the figs inside. Oh, all these dried figs. That's really great. I mean, that doesn't look half bad, does it? Hang on a moment. Let me just show you that again. I mean, how easy was that? It's 5 minutes, it looks really impressive, and there's no cooking at all. That's what I call fun. So the first thing I'm doing is taking the caps off 16 big mushrooms. Just take them off like that. Mushrooms really can absorb any flavor because they really don't have much flavor themselves. So I'm gonna put about 3 tablespoons of olive oil. And then 2.5 tablespoons of marsala. It's a wonderful sweet dessert wine. It's very often used in zabaione. You can use sherry if you don't have it. Okay, give it a big toss. And that's gonna really absorb the flavors into the mushrooms. Okay, in the meantime, I'm gonna make the stuffing. 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And 3/4 pound of Italian sausage. I'm using sweet Italian sausage, but you can certainly use hot if you like it hot, or combine the two. It's good and messy, but it makes delicious stuffing. I'm just gonna let this cook until it's nicely browned. I'm gonna chop some mushroom stems, the ones that I took off, and just put them right into the cooked sausage. And now lots of flavors. I've got 6 scallions all chopped up. You want this to be really spicy and delicious. 2 cloves of garlic minced. Just give that a quick saute. And now instead of putting bread in this stuffing, I'm gonna put panko in, which is dried Japanese bread flakes. And I just think they give a nice crispness to it, which is just what I'm looking for. So about 2/3 of a cup. That should be good. Give it a big stir. This is really smelling like good stuffing. You can smell the sausage and the garlic and scallions, and some mascarpone to make it nice and creamy and hold it together. So I need about 5 ounces. I think this package is 8 3/4, so good part of this package. I always use good Italian mascarpone, it makes a difference. Okay, now off the heat, I'm gonna add 2 more things and some salt and pepper. First one is Parmesan cheese. I'm just doing that off the heat because I don't want the Parmesan to stick to the pan. So about 1/3 cup of Parmesan cheese. That should be good. And some fresh parsley. About 2.5 tablespoons. And then salt and pepper. Teaspoon of salt. You want this really well seasoned because remember the mushrooms don't have all that much flavor. Kind of like polenta, it absorbs whatever flavor you give it. So that's the stuffing. Looks delicious. Now I'm gonna put it in the mushrooms. Perfect pan, great. And I think I'm just gonna drizzle the extra olive oil and marsala wine over it. Okay, time to stuff the mushrooms. Just a regular teaspoon, just stuff each one. And so when this bakes, it's gonna be just tender and delicious and spicy with the sausage. Into the oven, 325 degrees. I can't wait till these come out.